Xinjiang, it's in the spotlight again. A delegation of diplomatic envoys from 30 Muslim-majority countries visited the autonomous region in August. What was their personal experience there? How big is the gap between what they saw and what is told by the Western media? I talked to a member of the delegation who comes from a country once ravaged by terrorism, Syria. He also told me why Syria decided to join the Belt and Road Initiative. I had the pleasure to be joined by the Syrian Ambassador to China, His Excellency Mohammed Hasanein Khaddam. What's his impression of Xinjiang? What did he do there? Let's take a look.
Thank you very much for hosting me on your very widely followed program. It's an honor.
Thank you.
And it's an honor to be the ambassador of my country in the friendly China. In fact, this is my second posting to China. As you mentioned, I was among a group of diplomats from 30 OIC countries that visited Xinjiang for a period of 5 days. In fact, my deputy accompanied me the full tour. I arrived only the last 2 days. I want to tell you the gap between what we saw in reality on the ground and what we usually read in Western media outlets is unbridgeable by all standards. Of course, coming from Syria after 12 years of terrorist and Western war launched against my country. In fact, it's the same game, replay of the same lies from the same media outlets that are forging stories out of nowhere. It was very impressive tour. Everyone was impressed. And what impressed me more, including all the delegation, was the successful policies taken by the Chinese government that changed this remote province into an oasis of business and success, which reflected on the lives and well-being of the people there from all ethnicities. The peaceful atmosphere where you can walk in the markets for late hours in the night. All the tour was impressive. I must big thank you for the organizers of that tour.
Did you have the freedom to talk to some members of the local community of different ethnic backgrounds to know how, what they want in life, how they feel about life, and what were your takeaway from these exchanges, if you had any?
Yeah, we met, in fact, people from all walks of life, workers, tradesmen, religious figures who live peacefully, preserve their culture. It reflects in their dress codes, food, lifestyle, whether in the mosque or the factory or the school. I do believe that the freedom and well-being of the Xinjiang people, really, they enjoy freedoms that cannot be matched by many Muslim communities in many countries that criticize China now. At least they feel they belong to their own country, while on the other side, those communities in the Western countries, in fact, they feel disenfranchised, not belonging. No wonder the huge number of ISIS groups, the terrorist group, came from European countries, and with the consent and the blind eye of their governments. This is the full sense of not belonging. I have only congratulations for the success of the Chinese policies, and in fact, wishing the well-being of the people of Xinjiang. In fact, we look forward for the revival of Xinjiang's role throughout history as the main gate of the Silk Road, which Syria was a very important part of.
In terms of the freedom of pursue religious beliefs, Xinjiang has many mosques. There are many people who believe in Islam, and their culture and religious practice are different from those of other ethnic groups and religious believers. What was your impression after touring possibly mosques and these religious sites and talking to religious figures or people? Do you have a sense that their freedom to practice the religion that they believe in is fully protected, and that their religious heritages, and including whole cultural heritages, were adequately protected. And if you could, will you share with us one example of what you saw in this?
In fact, the group visited mosques and met with people, prayed with people, mingled with people in schools, in factories, in plants, in everywhere. I didn't notice any thing imposed. In fact, not only me, all the delegation. People were exercising their religious rituals, normally observing their culture and preserving their culture. You can tell from the dress code, the beards, their lifestyle. I didn't see any diminished or limited limitations on the freedoms. And this is what they told us, in fact. And this is what all the delegation noticed.
If you were to share with us one moment that imprinted in your mind during your trip, which one would it be?
It was in the market. You know, in fact, at the last day, in Urumqi, we visited, we went in a tour in the city, the historical appearance of the city, the buildings, very well maintained, mosques, and people in the street, you know, to be able to shop. In fact, we stayed until 12 o'clock. This is very safe atmosphere. We mingled with everyone. In fact, I bought a lot of dry fruits and, you know, traditional crafts. Everyone is exercising his freedom to practice his religion, and as well as to practice, his survivability through work. It's a success story. It's an envious success story. We enjoyed really the tour. It was a very beautiful tour. I missed a lot not going the first 2 days.
Was it the first time that you visited Xinjiang? Because you were posted in China before.
Yeah, it was my first time
Yeah.
I visited Xinjiang.
So comparing what you saw and comparing what you read, what you have been reading on the international media about all the horrible things that were alleged to have taken place in Xinjiang, including genocide or forced labor, concentration camp, how do you understand the huge gap? What accounted for the huge gap between what you saw and what you understood and what was told to you on the media? And why do you think so many lies are being stirred up about Xinjiang?
First of all, China is a success story, and Xinjiang is another example of this success story. I think Xinjiang within the last decade achieved about 250% growth. It's a remarkable figure by all standards, and it's reflected on on the people's life and well-being. And about genocides, these ridiculous accusations. You know, you cannot accuse a country that hosts 56 ethnicities living in peace for thousands of years of committing genocide. You know, the diversity is enough proof that there is the real essence of the democracy and acceptance is manifested within the people and their culture. While on the other hand, in fact, if you look in the societies of the countries that accuse China, look at their social structure. They are mono-ethnic, mono-religious, and in fact, I'm sorry to say, same color. And if you want to conclude something here, it would tell you that a lot of genocidal history they passed through. And it can tell the number of different communities that were eliminated to reach this, I'm sorry to say, eugenic society. It will be very wise for these countries to learn coexistence and tolerance and sit Chinese classes to acquire this culture.
Let's talk a little bit about the situation in Syria after over a decade of war and instability. Right now, Syria is slowly trying to regain its sovereignty, to embark on the road of reconstruction. I understand that since the beginning of this year, Syria joined the Belt and Road Initiative. How did Syria make this choice? What does it look to benefit from this project, and what would it be mainly about?
Thank you. Very important question. It's like the rest or majority of third world countries. We believe the BRI initiative brings hope of a new modality of work between countries based on win-win without dictation or disrespect. And what adds more depth to the initiative is the historical context it takes, as it revives the ancient Silk Road, which my country was part of some 23 centuries ago. Of course, Syria can benefit a lot from this initiative, especially with the rebuilding process that already took off in my country. We wish and invite Chinese companies to be part of the rebuilding process and take advantage of the encouraging investment atmosphere recent laws offer, and the wide range of spectrum of works they can take part in. Of course, we look with special care that these companies come from friendly country that stood beside mine during the hardships.
Are there specific areas that you can recommend to investments from China? Because you represent Syria, you know the country very well. Where should Chinese companies, for instance, start in trying to carry out some project under the BRI?
You know, there are a lot of disruption that was caused by the war in Syria. And the field of infrastructure, you know, the field of industry, the field of agriculture. There are many fields that need maybe to rebuild. And we have a plan on this rebuilding that arranged by the Syrian Planning Commission with other ministries. And it has looked for Syria, post-war Syria. The Chinese companies can get involved in ports, in roads, in bridges, in transportation, in railways, you know, that connect Syria to Iraq, maybe connecting north to south, as well as ports, and the gap that we missed during the war of the for the growth, natural growth and development of Syrian economy. So the spectrum is very wide.
Thank you so much for your time, Your Excellency, the Syrian Ambassador to China, Mr. Mohammed Hasanein Khaddam. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Lushen. Thank you.